Here we are beginning Daf Nun Aleph Amud Beis, and we are starting at the top of the page, concluding the ideas of the obligations that surround a kois shel bracha. And the next halacha is magbia min hakarka tefach. One of the halachas is you have to lift it up from the ground. That's if you're eating on the ground. A tefach, if you're eating on a table, then you have to lift it up a tefach from the table, like that. Amar Bacha Rabbi Chanina, says Rabacha, the son of Rabbi Chanina, my Kara, where do we learn that you have to lift up the glass in a certain way and not just leave it on the table or on the ground itself? Because it says, Kois Yishu Ois Esar, the glass of salvation I will lift up, V'Shem Hashem Ekra, and in the name of Hashem I will call out, indicating that when you call out in the name of Hashem, which is the bracha, lift up that glass. Next halacha is you have to look at the cup as you're saying the bracha. Why is that? The Gemara answers, Ki Heichi explains, I beg your pardon, in order that you should not get distracted your das from it. And then you have to send it over to the lady of the household, to the wife of the host, b'matona, as a gift. In order that the wife should be blessed, the wife, and that is the reason behind it. So now we're going to actually illustrate this with a story which didn't have quite the happy ending. Ula came to the house of Rav Nachman. Korach had a wrap of his bread, and he made the birchas hamazon. He took the koshel bracha, the glass, the cup of blessing, and he gave it to Rav Nachman. Amar le Rav Nachman, l'shalem mar kasa de birchas leyalsa. Send this glass of wine to Yalsa. Yalsa was the wife of Rav Nachman. Rav Nachman was the son-in-law of the Reish Galusa, the Exarch, and therefore Yalsa came from, as it were, nobility, which will perhaps explain why she was so upset, as we're about to see, as you're about to discover. So Ula didn't want to do that because he said, Rabbi Yochanan says, "Ein pri bitno shel isha misbarach ela mi pri bitnoi shel ish," that the fruit of the literally stomach of a woman, meaning a woman's children, only receive their bracha in the merit of the man's. In other words, the pri bitno shel ish, the fruit of the stomach of the man, is what causes the fruit of the stomach of the woman to be blessed. Using a slightly less archaic and clumsy terminology, the beauty or the merit or solidity of the children of the woman are because of the merit of the man. As it says in the pasuk, and he will bless the fruit of your tummy. I don't want you, I know that's what's normally translated. The fruit of your loins, maybe? It doesn't say hers, ela privitnacha, but yours, meaning the man's. And we have a brayso to support this contention that Rabbi Yochanan, and of course Ula subscribes to it. Tanya Nam Yochi, Rabbi Nosson says, how do we know that the fruit of the woman is only blessed from the fruit of the man? Mamash, like Rabbi Yochanan said. So the problem was at the Hachi Shama Yalsa. But in the meantime, you also heard that Ula was refusing to send her the koshel bracha. Kama bezira. She rose in anger. She went up to the wine cellar. And she broke 400 barrels of wine, which was a huge amount of wine and a huge amount of money. Amalei Rav Nachman, at this stage, Rav Nachman says to Ula, you best send her another glass. And this time Ula follows. He says, Shalach la, and he sent her with a message, and he said, Kol navga de berchasehi. This entire barrel that I'm sending to you, meaning this second glass of wine, even though it wasn't the original one that we made a blessing on, has the same status, because the entire barrel was a blessed barrel. She was not impressed with this. Shalchale, and she sent back these following biting words. Me mahadure mile, from those that go around, me mahadure, from those that go around, meaning traveling salesmen who are not already valued for their authenticity and genuineness, but more to making a quick sale. Mile, they're just words in general, meaning traveling salesmen, you can't trust a word they say. Umismartute, and from rags klime come lice. So this was a pretty harsh retort that Yalsa had. Just goes to show, Jewish women, don't mess with them. You can't distract yourself from a kois shel bracha, and you cannot make a bracha on a glass of disaster. The Gemara says, "My kois shel paranos." What's considered a glass of disaster? To the second glass, meaning back in the day there was a danger based on a spiritual principle called zugos, which means pairs. For some reason, demons had a rulership over things which came in even numbers, and there's a lot of discussion in the Gemara, especially in Psachim, about the problem of doing things in pairs. So if this person wanted to make a bracha and he had 2 glasses of wine, which would be a problem of pairing, of zugos, you're not allowed to do that because it doesn't bring bracha. It's a dangerous thing to do, and therefore it's a disaster. Don't make a bracha on it. A person that drinks 2 glasses at the same time, he should not make a bracha. As it says, you should prepare in front of your God Yisrael. You should get things that are helpful, that create a tikkun. And this is not a tikkun, this is no rectification. This is a disaster. Rebbe said, and there are those that say it was taught in a brisa, a person that's walking, he's eating and he's walking. When he comes to say the bracha, Brachos Hamazon, he can do that standing up. And if he's eating standing up, he should sit down in order to make Brachos Hamazon. And if he's reclining, and that's how he's eating, he should sit down and, in other words, essentially sit up and make a bracha. But the halacha in all of the above cases is whether you're standing, whether you're walking, whether you're reclining, you always have to sit up and make a bracha. That's the way you bench Hadron alach shloisha she'achlu. We shall return to you shloisha she'achlu. Amen. Ken Yeratzon. Now the Mishnah in the new parak launches into a series of differences in regard to, we've completed the idea of making a Brachos Hamazon and the brachos of Brachos Hamazon, of what you should bless, how you should, etc., in great detail, and the zimun. Now we're going on to the actual protocol involved in the meal itself, and unfamiliar to us, there were many different areas that the meal, there were specific halachas, which today, because we eat differently, are perhaps no longer relevant, but they were very, very relevant at the time. And there's a huge range or list of machlokes in between Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel as to how to approach different stages of the meal. And here we go. Elu dvarim shebein Beis Shammai u Beis Hillel b'suda. These are the things that disputed Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel for a meal. Number 1, Beis Shammai mevarich al hayoim v'achar kach mevarich al hayayin. Beis Shammai say you make a bracha on the day when it comes to Kiddush. You should first say the nusach of Kiddush, and then you should say it's Borei Pri Hagafen. The Beis Hillel oimim mevarich al yayin v'achar kach mevarich al hayoim. You should first make Borei Pri Hagafen, and then you should make the bracha of Kiddush, which is how we do it, as we're going to discover in the Gemara. So, as opposed to us, Beis Shammai would first say the entire nusach of the bracha. For example, on Shabbos, they would first say the nusach of the bracha on Shabbos, and then they would conclude it with the Borei Pri Hagafen, and we do it the other way around. So we learned previously that they used to bring wine before the meal, and over here Beis Shammai say that's when you used to do the Netilas Yadayim, long before you got the bread. Before you got the wine, you do a proper washing of your hands, and then afterwards you drink the wine, then afterwards you eat the bread. Whereas Beis Hillel hold you can drink that first glass of wine, and then afterwards, before you eat the bread, do you wash your hands? Beis Shammai say you can wipe your hands with a cloth, and then you can put it down on top of the table. Beis Hillel say you can't put it back on the table, you need to rest it on your pillow. What is this talking about? Why is this relevant? We will discover. Beis Shammai say you can sweep the home, and then you should wash mayim achronim. And if this is talking about if you're eating on the floor, it means sweep the floor. If you're eating on a table, clear off the crumbs off the table, and then you wash mayim achronim. Whereas Beis Hillel say no. First you have to wash your hands for mayim achronim, and then you can afterwards clean off the table or sweep the house. Beis Shammai say in the following situation, it's Shalosh Shudas, your last meal on the Sabbath day, and you only have one glass of wine. How should you organize it? You need to make a bracha of the wine on the Birkas Hamazon that you haven't yet benched. You need to make a wine because you always need a kosher bracha at Birkas Hamazon according to the Gemara, and therefore you've got one glass of wine. How should you figure it out with Havdalah? Says Beis Shammai, first you make a bracha on the candle, then you make Birkas Hamazon, then you make the bracha on the spices, and then you make the bracha of Havdalah. Beis Hillel Oimrim Ner Ubesamim Mazon V'Havdalah. Whereas Beis Hillel say first you make the bracha on the candle, then you make the bracha on the spices, then you bench and make the bracha, I suppose, on the wine for benching, and then you make Havdalah afterwards. A new halacha. Beis Shammai say when you bless on the candle, you don't. The way you said is the light of the fire. Whereas Beis Hillel say the one who creates the lights of the fire. And this is going to be everyone. You cannot make a bracha not on the candle and not on the spices of avodah zarah, idolatrous practices. So if there's a candle or spices that were used for idolatrous practices, you cannot use them for Havdalah. And not on the candle nor on the spices that come from that was dedicated for the honor of a dead person. They were kind of designated for only the usage for dead people. They become forbidden to be used. And not on ner, not on the candle and not on the spices of idolaters. In other words, the first one is referring to idolaters, people that were involved in avodah zarah. You can't use their candle and their spices. And this one is talking about it could be your very own, but you just happen to have a pastime of worshipping idols, and you use these in that practices. First of all, not a good idea to do that. Secondly, you can't use them for Havdalah. You can't make a bracha on candle until you get pleasure. Funny word, ya'usa means like for a lotion of perhaps taiva. You should get joy from the candle, benefit from the candle, and that's what you need to have in order to make the bracha. And new halacha, a person ate and he forgot to bench, and he forgot and he didn't bench. Beis Shammai say you have to go back to where you ate and make the bracha there. You can make a bracha at the point of time when you remember, even though you're far away from the place of the location of your original eating. How long do you have to bench after you've eaten? Until the point where it is digested, the food in your intestines, in your tummy, and the Gemara will discuss how long that is. Now, a new halacha. They had wine coming to them after they'd already finished the meal. So if that's the only glass of wine you have, Beis Shammai say you first make a bracha ber paragofen on this wine, and then you make benching. Beis Hillel say no, you first make a birkas hamazon, and then you bless on the wine. In other words, you save the glass of wine for birkas hamazon. New halacha. You can make say amen after you've heard a yid, a Jew making a bracha, but you can't make a bracha of amen after you've heard a kusi we discussed those were these nation that we're not quite sure about. Are they Jewish or not Jewish? Even if they are Jewish, they do some things, they don't do others. So you can't make a bracha on the kusi. You can't say amen to the bracha of kusi unless you have the entire bracha, because there's a suspicion that even they may have concluded the bracha, let's say Borei Praise, the beginning of the bracha, they may have given credence to their God that they worshipped on the mountain called Mount Gerizim, and therefore you have to have the whole bracha to make sure that they're doing it in a legit way. The Gemara begins. Dvarim shebein Beis Shammai uBeis Hillel b'Suda. These are the things that are divided about Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel at Emil. Beis Shammai oimim mevorach al hayoim v'achar kach mevorach al yain. So Beis Shammai say first you make a bracha on kiddush, and then you make a bracha on the wine. Shayoim gerem l'yain shiavoy, because it is the day that causes the wine to come. In other words, why are you making a bracha on the wine today? Is it because you suddenly have a desire to sample wines? Indeed not. It's because it's Shabbos or it's Yom Tov, and therefore it's the day that causes the wine to come, and therefore the day has precedence. A second reason is and also sequentially, it's already become holy the day, meaning it's after Shkia, it's after Tzeis, and now you're making Kiddush, so the holiest of the day sets in sequentially before you drink the wine. So there are two reasons why you should make the bracha on the day first. First of all, it is the origin of why you have wine to begin with, and secondly, sequentially, it comes before the wine, and therefore you should say it before you say the bracha on the wine. And basically argue, and they say, no, you should say the bracha of wine first, and the reason is, number one, the wine causes Kiddush to be said, because you always have to make Kiddush on a glass of wine. So why do you have the permission to make Kiddush over here? Because you have the wine there. So actually the wine is the origin of Kiddush. And the second reason is the bracha of the wine is said more commonly, and the bracha of Kiddush is said less commonly. And we have a principle, tadir v'she'einu tadir, when you have something which is common, something which is less common, or frequent and less frequent, tadir koidem, the thing which is more frequent comes first, and that actually comes out from the korban atomid, that you'd always offer up the daily offering before the festival offerings, because of this principle of something which is more frequent gains precedence. V'halacha k'divrei Beis Hillel, and the halacha follows is a brisa like Beis Hillel. The Gemara asks, "My davarchem, what is it that Beis Hillel need to add in a secondary reason?" The answer is v'chitem hazam tarti v'achachada, because if you'll say there are two reasons, meaning Beis Shammai has got two reasons that they stated, whereas Beis Hillel only said one. Hachanami tarti ninu. Over here we also have two reasons, says Beis Hillel back to Beis Shammai. Because the bracha of the wine is more common, the bracha of the day is less common, and when we have common and less common, common comes first. Now the Gemara asks on that kind of last leg of the brisa, which said that halacha follows Beis Hillel. I mean, we know that, don't we? Because a voice boomed from the heaven and said halacha Beis Hillel. So we don't need to be told that, it's already been established by a heavenly source. Two answers the Gemara gives. Answer number one, the first answer is, we're talking about this Mishnah predated the Baskol, and therefore this brisa predated the Baskol, and therefore it was necessary to say or you could say it's even after the Baskol, but we're following the opinion of Rabbi Yeshua, and we're following the opinion of Rabbi Yeshua, that we don't pay attention to a Baskol. The famous scenario of Rabbi Yeshua and Rabbi Lezer was in a case called the Tanur Shel Achnai. It was a specific stove that there was a machlokes between Rabbi Lezer and Rabbi Yeshua whether the stove is tamei or not. And Rabbi Lezer brought countless proofs to say that it is. And the Chachamim as well as Rabbi Yeshua opposed it, and Rabbi Lezer, to prove him, he went through a series of kind of miraculous proofs that the walls of the Beis Midrash should collapse, that the stream outside should flow backwards, that the carob tree should be uprooted, and everything that Rabbi Lezer said was kind of came true. And ultimately, Rebbe Lezer asks for a voice to come down from heaven to say that he's right. And the voice does come down from heaven, and it does say Rebbe Lezer is right. To which Rebbe Yeshua responds that Loi b'shamayim the halachas of Torah are not given to be decided in the heavenly realms. They're given over to the Beis Din to make a decision based on the criteria and the parameters that the Torah has given us, and therefore there's no reason why we have to attend to this Paschal, even though the Shemaim is declaring that the halacha follows Rebbe Lezer. The majority argue with him, and therefore the halacha follows the majority. And on this, the Gemara concludes a very beautiful and moving phrase, Nitzchuni banai nitzchuni. It's almost as if HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, my children, you have triumphed over me, my children. Now what exactly that means is such a bewildering and mysterious lesson. If you want to look it up, you can find it in, I believe, Bav Metzia Nun Tes Amud Beis. If I'm not mistaken, that's where the Tanu Shechnai Sugya is located. Either way, we conclude today's lesson, and we look forward to many more precious lessons in Shas.